Today I have with me Arun Ulag, who is the president for Azure Data at Microsoft. Thank you for being here, Arun. I'm doing this series with Microsoft leaders where we're debunking certain myths, but also what is the new era of transformation within the whole AI and data space. The biggest issue we had to really work through the last few years has been the semantic understanding of the AI models. And why is this so important more than ever? Because of the technology we have, especially with Fabric and how we're able to orchestrate that.
That's awesome. First of all, Isha, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So let's start with what customers are trying to do. And in many ways, let's think about, hey, the problem we're trying to solve is we're going to move into a world in which humans and agents are working side by side. Right? And let's think about, hey, how do we take a human employee and make him or her productive? Right? Well, you can't just hire them and throw them in. You have to give them a whole bunch of context around their team, their organization, their role, who they work with, what are they supposed to deliver. I think about that as organizational context, right? But then there's also institutional context around, hey, how is business done here? What are our standard operating procedures? What are our manuals? What are our checklists? What are our precedents? What have we done before that we can learn from? So I think about that as institutional knowledge, right? And then the third bucket I think about is just the state of the business, right? How are things going today? How many customers do we have? What's growing? What's not, etc. And this is what we provide to a human employee, one of our colleagues, to make them productive. So the way we see the opportunity is the same context that we need for our best employees is also what we need to make available to our agents. Right? Yeah. So what we're doing here at Microsoft is really shipping an intelligence layer, right? That customers can use to empower the employees and empower the agents and have them work side by side. And we think we announced this at Ignite in November, and it's really caught on because customers understand it. They understand how it can help them build agents that are actually useful. And we think about this in terms of three products that compose this intelligence layer. We think about this as Work IQ, which understands how the organization works, the team works. Foundry IQ, which allows them to build knowledge bases that capture the institutional knowledge. And my favorite part, which is Fabric IQ, which is the part that I built, but that's all the business data that helps them understand exactly what's going on with their company at that particular point in time. So all of these three things compose into a shared intelligence layer that empowers the humans and the agents.
When we talk about this intelligence layer, what is something that is important when you're considering a data strategy today? Also, one of the patterns that we see in AI is a lot of the organizations are really targeting the productivity layer when it comes to AI, but still hesitant to use it for their core business strategy. One of the reasons being is they're afraid of AI taking the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's where this semantic or the data layer becomes even more important, because the better the data layer is, the better the output of these AI agent systems are. What is your take on that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. When ChatGPT came out, right, we all got so addicted. It was so incredibly useful. And then everybody said, hey, as a business user who wants to work with data, I want to have a ChatGPT type experience, right? So everybody rushed off and said, we're going to go ship this. Guess what? These LLMs can write SQL, right? So the first thing that everybody did is we'll just take the natural language, or the question that the human said, and translate that to SQL. And voila, we'll be done, right? And by and large, people were very disappointed with the results. Why? Because, NL to SQL, natural language to SQL, is great for writing code, but it's not great for creating business results that you can put in front of a business user, because it makes a lot of mistakes. But it gets dramatically better once you have a semantic layer in between, right? Why is that? Because the semantic layer captures things like the relationships between the different tables. So the LLM doesn't have to guess how to join the data. The semantic model defines the measure definitions, like how is variance to budget calculated for this particular company, this department, right? How do they calculate results in constant currency, for example? These are sophisticated business logic that have specific rules that are unique to a specific organization. The LLM doesn't know that, right? So it can't just guess how to calculate the measure. Somebody needs to define how the measure is calculated. The semantic model does that. So it defines all of these things that are not in the raw data. But once you have a semantic model, it's night and day. The results get very, very much better. And the good news about that is Microsoft, we've been investing in semantic models for 10 plus years, right? 20 million semantic models run in Fabric today. We pretty much connect to data everywhere, whether data is sitting in Azure or AWS or GCP or on-prem or Salesforce or SAP, you name it, pretty much you can guarantee that most of the data is flowing through Fabric semantic models into Power BI, which is by far the world's leader in business intelligence. So we have this huge opportunity to help customers leverage their semantic model investments to empower humans, but also to empower agents.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've kind of touched up on the tech stack, which leads us as the foundation of what we are able to build on. But could you also maybe touch upon the KPIs and like the results part of this thing that becomes even more important? Because it's one thing to have all the technology ready in terms of like the structure of everything, how it's laid out and frameworks, but it's also another thing to have those direct KPIs. And I think this is kind of where we have not struggling as an industry, but we have to figure this out as an industry of what are those things that we need to define, that we have to measure, like those KPIs at the end of the day, because the dependency of how good the output is from AI also is dependent on how are you building it from ground up with those defined KPIs. Because if we're just experimenting without any KPIs or goals, then it's also, we are kind of shooting randomly to get somewhere, but not anywhere. And so if there is any suggestion that you would have to have that as a consideration within like the entire orchestration, what would that be?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because you always want to drive to an outcome that moves the customer's business forward, right? And that's kind of how we think about it as Microsoft, Isha, and you know that, you're part of the company, right? Yes. But we always think about what moves the customer forward. And I think about this in terms of, let's start with people, right? The first thing I think about is, hey, are we democratizing data? Are we democratizing insights? Are we democratizing access? Are we helping people make sense of the information at their fingertips, you know? And I think there's so much opportunity there. Power BI by far is the world's largest business intelligence tool. But why is that? Because it made data easy to understand, right? We're now at the next inflection point, because now, you can have, previously you needed to, if you weren't a data expert, you would look for a data analyst or a business analyst to help you understand the data. And guess what? These people are in high demand. They're in short supply. Right? So what we've done in Fabric is ship something called a data agent, right? You can think about the data agent as almost like a virtual business analyst. Right. Like you would train the data agent like you would onboard a business analyst. You'll give the data agent context, right? Like which semantic models do you work with? Like how do you reason over them? What kind of questions should you expect, etc. But once you're ready, you share that with business users. Now, previously, maybe 1 out of 100 or 1 out of a few hundred business users might have access to a data analyst. With a data agent, everybody can have access. So everybody can make better decisions. So I really, really think about, hey, how do you empower people? So the metric that matters to me most is like, hey, how many people are using the capabilities you're shipping and how much value are they getting? But I think we're also evolving to a world in which, people partner with agents. Right? So now the new metric is like how many people and how many agents are leveraging, the data in an insightful way. So there's many other metrics we could talk about for sure, but these are the two that I think most about.
Thank you so much for having this conversation. This has been very, very insightful, not only for me, but everyone I think that is interested in transforming their businesses with AI and with the data space. So thank you so much for being here, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. Great work, and look forward to, seeing you again.
Thank you.